inspiring conversation by the ambassador. And I think a perfect lead into this conversation, she talked about building airports and world roads and highways and homes. So I think it's a perfect introduction for what we have today. So today we have just a powerhouse panel of individuals with us. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to tell you their names, but I also want to give each of them a chance to also give us their background. So we have Thelma Ekiyor. So she is the managing partner of SMENG. We have Keisha Houghton. She is the founder of Abeja International Development. We have Angela Heath, who is the founder of TKC Incorporated. And last and certainly not least, we have Dr. Musa Shaikh. He is the group CEO of Berkeley Holding, and he's also an advisor to His Royal Excellency Khalif El Hamid in the UAE. So thank you all for being here with us today. Dr. Musa, you're here first. So if you can just give us more about your background and a little bit about what you do.
That's great. Thank you very much for your lovely introduction. And I'm going to, first of all, I want to thank everyone to have me on the show. Regarding my introduction my name is Musa Sheikh, and I am a group CEO of Berkeley Middle East Holding. We are into different ventures like education, healthcare, investments, trading, energy, and infrastructure. So quite a huge portfolio is under me. It's exceeding around $1 trillion. So as a person, I look into investments and look into different countries. I help countries to raise funds for their different projects. And last 10 years, I'm connected with different government officials in Africa. And we are quite frequently meeting in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and we share a lot of projects and discussions and enthusiasm for Africa to build again.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ms. Heath, Angela, can you give us just a little bit more about your background and your work?
Absolutely. Thank you, Remy, so much for inviting me on this panel. So I'm the president of TKC Incorporated, and we are gig economy people. So my view of this panel is probably a little bit different, but we're looking at the impact that self-employed independent contractors make on economies, corporations, and also individuals, and have a real interest in seeing the continent of Africa expand opportunities for freelancers because it has a great impact on just the entire continent.
Excellent. Thank you. And Thelma, please tell us a little bit more about your background.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Absolutely, we can.
Okay. My name is Thelma Ekiyor. I'm the managing partner of SMENG. We're an impact investment platform based in Nigeria. We have two funds for women. We have a bottom of the pyramid fund to finance women entrepreneurs that are micro and quasi-micro to break them out of poverty. And then we have a larger ticket size fund to help women entrepreneurs that want to get into new markets, women entrepreneurs that want to create intergenerational businesses. And yes, we have Nigeria's first non-tech all-women's accelerator. We're proud of it because we realize that if we really are going to break women out of poverty, we need to create strong investment-ready businesses.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Such great backgrounds. And I know you all will have some great insights to share on public-private partnerships. So starting out, just want to get the panelists' views on some PPPs, public-private partnerships that they have been involved in, and just kind of globally thinking about what are some benefits of that to the continent of Africa, but also some perils and pitfalls that should be thought about or thought through as these sorts of things are implemented. And whoever wants to start first, feel free.
That's amazing. I think I will volunteer myself.
Okay,
So
please.
private-public partnership is the growing trend, and actually it's a necessity. I mean, you don't have a choice. It's not that you have to choose between a fully public funded project or you are talking about a private funded project. These are private funds are different for their own profits, and the government funds are sovereign and they are focused on the development of the country. But at times, it's not possible for the governments to invest a lot of money because they lack money. Their resources are quite limited, and they need to spend it on the necessary stuff, and they don't left mostly with the money that is for the new projects, innovative and infrastructural and other upcoming requirements. That is nowadays it's become mandatory to have infrastructure or hospitals or schools or manufacturing or free zone setting up facilities for mining and all that. So where you need a private partner to join hands with a public sector, it is a really win-win solution because private people, as we consider, they are more smarter, more faster. They look into their interests. They want to grow their businesses. And on the other hand, government want to deliver to citizens different projects which will add in their portfolio, and they can say that they are doing a good governance. So this combination between money, expertise, and authorities is really hygienic, and it is really workable. And I think that 70% governments across the globe are working on this model. There are a lot of advantages. Of course, you have an access to a larger pool of money. You have larger access to the manpower. If you are, say, in Africa, the private companies from America, so they can bring a lot of technology, a lot of high-end resources, and they can empower and transfer the skills and technology to the people in Africa. So this also become an ideal scenario for the African countries. On the other hand, of course, there is always a hidden objective as a drawback of the private companies. And private companies sometimes go out of their legitimate use. They do involve themselves into some malpractices and get their advantages, which goes in their favor in spite of the favor of the citizen. So that need to be studied in a proper feasibility and in a strategic dimension too. So later this drawback should not overcome the advantages of the public-private partnership. So as we can conclude that this is the future of the world. We need money, we need resources, and governments are not for doing business. Governments are for doing governance with the help of private individuals or large corporates or multinationals or maybe other governments, joint venture, bilateral or unilateral treaties and agreement. That's the role of the government. So involving private people would be very beneficial.
Excellent. Do any of the other panelists want to chime in on that question? Just kind of their experience with some partnerships and what they see as perils and benefits as well.
I wanted to just chime in. Earlier, you mentioned how will we see it as being a benefit to Africa. One of the areas that I think is just, critically important to keep in mind is this whole area of education and what public-private partnerships can do. Because we think about even pre-COVID, the whole economic system of the world is changing very rapidly with technology, and just the ability of people to earn income on their own if they are trained and if they have the resources and the tech to support them. So when I think about, such a continent with so many young people, and I think about the graduates from universities who, when they return home, they don't have options. So I see like in the educational area, a partnership with many of the private tech companies working with the government being just also beneficial to help bring many of the areas into this technological revolution that we are seeing. It's going to impact the future of employment in nations and open so many opportunities. So that's an area that I was really, interested in talking about.
I think that that's a great point, because a lot of times people think about these big highways and airports, but education is definitely an area where it's very important to have the public and private sectors working together to really advance the economy. Ms. Thelma, did you want to say something? And then I wanted to introduce Keisha as well, because she just joined us.
Yeah, I think I'll piggyback on the point about education. I mean, one of the things that COVID did, I mean, COVID is horrible, we'll all agree, but what it did for us on the continent of Africa was to put a mirror in front of us to look at our systems, and it showed all the weaknesses that exist in our systems and the inability of our systems to withstand such economic shocks. For example, so in the health sector, clearly our health sector couldn't cope with the volume of needs that were there. And also the education sector, with the lockdown that happened across Africa, only private schools that could afford to adapt to online learning or e-learning were able to continue. And that just exacerbates the class structure that exists on the continent, where if you're poor, you're not going to be able to get access to basic resources. Affordable and accessible education is a right for every child. And so those almost 5 months of the lockdown, many students couldn't gain access to education. And so when we're talking about public-private partnership, I think clearly our digital infrastructure needs to be completely revamped. And access to internet access shouldn't be a status symbol. It should be something that across the continent, I know even parts of the West, there are communities that don't have internet access. So it's just something that is very obvious, where you have, it disconnects people from information, disconnects people from connections. One of the things we did, you talked about an example of partnering, private partnerships. When COVID struck, one of the things we did was to partner with the government, the Federal Ministry for Women's Affairs, to conduct a national survey to put our finger on what the impact of COVID on women's businesses. And I thought I knew Nigeria very well, but it was such an eye-opener for us that a lot of the businesses that couldn't participate in the survey couldn't do that just because of access to internet. And so there's a digital divide when it comes to this access as well. And this is where PPP is vital, because it helps with reducing government spending, as Musa says, but it also helps we have to talk in the context of the environment that we're in now. It definitely helps with rebuilding African societies that have been decimated by COVID. It should help with the transfer of skills. But what often happens is that foreign firms that come to work in Africa bring their own bring their own teams and bring their own, experts. And so the transfer of skill, and then, hire Africans for the support roles. And so the transfer of skills that PPP should bring doesn't really happen across board, and it shouldn't be taken as a given. And so these are some of the challenges. I'll talk about some other challenges if you, so I give everyone else a chance, but these are some of the immediate challenges in the context of COVID I wanted to highlight.
We also were just joined by Keisha Houghton. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to everyone and just tell us a little bit more about your work. You're on mute. and I am not able to unmute you.
Keisha, please unmute yourself.
We will come back then. Oh, there you are. Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I had logged on to the wrong link. But yeah, my name is Keisha Houghton. I am the founder, CEO of Abeja International Development. And what we do is basically kind of a playoff of what I had done prior in my prior career, which was to support entrepreneurs. I used to work with the Small Business Development Center within the state of Maryland, and I worked with the Maryland Women's Business Center. And the main focus of what I am doing now is, again, focusing on the vulnerable populations that are in need of economic development support through business entrepreneurship, and provide access to the resources to help them create sustainable and successful businesses. So I'm particularly looking at women entrepreneurs, re-entry citizens that have a very difficult time finding a job after coming out of the judicial system, working with youth entrepreneurs. So those are the areas that I'm focusing on. And I have a connection in Tanzania. And so I'm looking to also do development work there as well, and across the continent of Africa.
Excellent. Thank you so much for telling us more about yourself. Musa and Thelma, you both mentioned that a lot of times the private partner will want to do things in their own favor. And Thelma, you mentioned that sometimes they'll come and want to bring their own professionals and not use the skill set that's on the ground. So then I think that begs the question, what makes a good partner on both ends? What makes a good private partner, but what also makes a good public partner?
Okay, I'll take the public partner bit. I enjoyed the previous panel, and I think one of the things across, anywhere in the world, the role of the government is not to create jobs. The role of the government, in Africa, what happens is the government tries to do all of that. The role of the government is to create a conducive environment for business to operate, and to make a country foreign investment friendly. And so one of the things that a public partner can do is to ease up the bureaucracy around foreign investment or foreign business opportunities in any country. And Rwanda has been mentioned. Rwanda always comes first or second. It was struggling with South Africa for a bit on ease of doing business and ease of entry. And that should be the gold standard across the continent. So the governments in Africa, the public partners should do that. They should also make it easy for foreign investments coming into the country to understand the laws and understand that they are protected, that their investments will be protected, because that is a very serious concern for any foreign investor coming into Africa. Somehow people have overhyped the Africa is very risky narrative, but then you see all the planes filled with all these investors coming into Africa. And what they've realized is that risk comes with reward. And so what the government has to do is ease up that wrong narrative around risk, because you will have some investors that just watch CNN and decide that that's all they're going to know about Africa, and don't bother to come in to find out that it is one of the most lucrative places to come and do business. Not because I'm Nigerian, but every time I hear of an investor that goes to another country to try and set up a factory, I'm like, I give them 2 months, they're gonna come to Nigeria. And sometimes it's not even up to 2 months, because we have the numbers. And so, but that narrative isn't told out there. And so there's a wrong impression of yes, there are challenges, but no country upplays their challenges. Every country tries to put their best foot forward. And that's what should happen in Africa. In terms of private partners, I think most people coming to invest in Africa have to realize that the world has changed. There are Africans of all shapes and sizes. So the stereotypical view of people who want to come to the continent and looking for people who are subservient, who do not know what they're doing, I mean, that's not the basis for any partnership. There should be mutual respect. There should be symbiotic interest. And what I tell a lot of Africans who are looking for foreign investors, they do due diligence on you. You do due diligence on them as well. Find out where they've invested. Find out how they've invested. Find out what their values are. Find out how they treat their partners. And I think that type of fundamental or foundational practice will improve the way we look at each other in partnerships.
Thank you so
I
much.
think you raised very accurate points, and I want to add more points into in terms of public responsibilities and private responsibilities. So as we understand that every country has a government, and this government has made some promises from the voters before they come into power. And what are, if you analyze all the countries, I'm not talking about only African countries, any country, people want to get an access to better education, better schooling, better healthcare, and they want job opportunities to be created. And so these are the fundamental expectations from a citizen of a country from their rulers. Now, once you come in the power, suppose you become a prime minister or a president of your country, so you know that you have a very specific duration, maybe 5 years, some countries 4 years, where you have to deliver all these promises to the nation. If you are unable to deliver these promises, so maybe you are out of the leadership for another 5 years and you will sit in the opposition. So with this kind of atmosphere, it becomes really important for a government to be active, synergized, be an ambassador, move to, they are actually the business development arm of the country. They go abroad, they bring different companies on board. On top of this, you are talking about some basic infrastructure stuff, which is called clean water, access to the housing projects. So this, any government who has no good governance will not be able to achieve by themselves. So if I say, okay, let's focus on education. So what about the information technology? As we just said that if you don't have internet, how I am going to study by using my laptop? So means that there is not a one factor who is going to transform the country. You need multiple factors to be focused on the same time. Now, the first thing what I feel is that it's like good governance. So you need to be at least on a developed country status in terms of your legislations, in terms of your compliances, in terms of, as you said, ease of doing business. Now, what is ease of doing business? I will give you an example. In UAE, sitting right now, if you want to do a business, or in UK or in USA, you want to form a company, it will not take more than half an hour or 45 minutes. You'll go online, you will fill all the information, you will pay a little bit small amount, and then you receive an email that we have received everything and we will get back to you. So this is called ease of doing business, how to register, then how to rent the premises, how to bring the machinery, infrastructure, and all that. I mean, based on my last 10-year experience, dealing with politicians, dealing with business community, dealing with diplomats, I have several kind of learnings. And you can see that a lot of brain drain has happened in African countries as well. There are so many good minds. They were really intelligent. They, the local government couldn't give them a better facility. They didn't feel secure in terms of health, education. So they moved to America, they moved to UK, they moved to Australia. And they acquired all the skills that a normal American knows. And they are passionate about going back to their country and to contribute the same values which they acquired because they belong from there. So in response to your question, of course, there are a lot of points as well, which I will contribute after a break.
Excellent, thank you. Angela or Keisha, do you want to chime in on your views on what makes a good public partner or a good private partner?
Well, I can speak on it from an entrepreneurship perspective. From my background, what I have seen with the public-private partnership really coming together and playing a good role in supporting building up the entrepreneurial community, which is the driving engine of any good economy, is to put resources in place to ensure that entrepreneurs have access to all the resources that they need to survive, whether it's the skills training, the education training that they need to start their business successfully, get the marketing, financing in line, whether it's the access to working on their credit, if that's an issue, working on their credit so that they can get access to capital, making the networking connections so that they have access. It's bringing the public sector and letting them provide that resource support, connecting the private sector that will give the entrepreneurs access to both. So you'll have the social support side from the public sector, and you'll have the innovative side from the private sector. Bringing that together can really help boost the success of entrepreneurs as they're really trying to scale up their businesses.
You know, Shavon, I wanted to just make one comment about the public sector. I know of quite a few entrepreneurs when they're looking at countries, no country in particular, but these are some of the statements that they make, that the government is always so slow. So that narrative you were talking about, that perception. So if you have the perception that there are nations where the government is slow, the government is corrupt, the government is not creative, that whole narrative needs to be changed around. And I guess before the narrative can be changed around, there needs to be some structural changes within, you know, the public system. But those are the kinds of roadblocks that will keep private entities from even approaching a particular nation. And I know that since we're talking about Africa, there's a lot of discussion about the corruption that is still going on in quite a few nations. So those are things that have to be addressed if you want to bring more private partnerships in.
Great, thank you very much.
Angela, I want to add here one point with your permission.
Yes.
You know, this, see, if you're talking about an investor who sit with the politicians and the governments, in the right 5 minutes, they can know that the government is corrupt or not, because they have money. And when they are sitting with the decision makers, I mean, it is very clear. So it's not about CNN or BBC, it's not about the journal, it's about the person you are sitting with.
Right.
Like, for example, I deal a lot with the government of Ghana, and I find them really enthusiastic, especially the people in Dubai. Like there is a lady called Samantha. She's the head of consulate, and I meet her regularly. She is such a nice, patriotic woman, and on the off days, she's working. In the late evenings, she's working. Whenever I'm calling, they are so professional and curious to bring investment in their country. So you, as an investor, investing arm, you can easily understand that which government is more committed to their citizen, and what is the quality of the officers they have. Because when a money person is going to sit with them as a deal, in 5 minutes you'll come to know that is this country is corrupted or not.
Hi, Shavon. Can I just say something? Because I think it's important to. I think we shouldn't underplay or downplay the strength of narratives when it comes to foreign investment. CNN and BBC are mouthpieces about Africa. Some people have never been to Africa. You probably have, so you're talking from firsthand experience. But some people just watch CNN and just watch BBC and make up their minds. I think we can't downplay. And this is why Africans have to tell their own stories. And this is why Africans in the diaspora and African Americans have to also tell the story about Africa, because narratives are extremely strong. They shape perceptions, and they shape what is called business confidence. That's why business confidence exists. Business confidence is nothing, it's not tangible. It's something that is abstract, but extremely infectious and strong. So I just wanted to say that we can't underplay the importance of narratives, particularly through the media and social media. It is shaping perceptions about the continent.
Thank you so much for adding that. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's on a macro and micro level. Before you come into even a deal with a one-party person, your narrative about that person is already going to affect how you go into that relationship, contract terms, how you negotiate with them. So I do think that narrative is important. You know, so many of the panelists here, you're heavily involved in the landscape of entrepreneurship. Keisha, you started to take us down this path. So I do want to spend some time talking about that, and especially its relation to PPP. You started to talk about, you know, resources. So I just want to drill down in on some resources that can be put in place for entrepreneurs if they want to take place in PPP, if they want to be able to scale, if they want to be able to attract foreign investment. And in particular, what sort of resources should be coming from the government, and what sort of resources should be coming from the private sector?
Yes, thank you. And I'm glad you raised that, because I do think that the role of the government has to play a more important role in supporting their local entrepreneurs, first and foremost, because it really needs to start from the bottom up, right? So when we take that in consideration, then we need to look at what can African governments put in place as a whole, as an overall whole, to really encourage their local entrepreneurs to feel that they're supported and empowered to grow their business, take it to the next level, and then even engage in global markets that are, you know, potential for them. And so one of the things that I was looking at as I was kind of going through, just from my experience in trying to do business in Tanzania, I think that there are certain things that could be put in place to make the business landscape easier for the local entrepreneur. So some of the things that I wanted to just point out was creating a one-stop shop for government interaction. So there should be an easy access or hub that entrepreneurs can go to and get access to a number of different things that they may need support in, whether it's financing, whether it's marketing, whether it's the legal support, you know, what are the regulations that may impact their business, licensing, et cetera. There should be a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs to be able to go to that and get access to that information. I would also say, in terms of making it easier for them as they're trying to grow their business, reduce tax burdens. So, you know, one of the things that I have seen has been a struggle for entrepreneurs as they're really trying to get things up and running is the burden of taxes that they may be facing. So I would say reduce the tax burden, especially on these, you know, fledgling startups as they're trying to get their business up and running. I would also say that there needs to be an incentivization of high-tech entrepreneurial ventures, as well as support for inventors, because, you know, very often we look outside of Africa for potential inventions, but I have seen some things that have been coming out of Africa that is amazing. And so I think there just needs to be more support for those local inventors, those innovators in Africa, to encourage them to continue to do the research and get the support that they need to grow. I would also say, I had mentioned the hub for centralized resources. There needs to be maybe a reinvention or re-looking at the funding model. You know, I heard one of the earlier panels talking about women entrepreneurs and the difficulties they have in getting access to financing. And women entrepreneurs are one of the fastest growing entrepreneurs, you know, not only in Africa, but globally. And so there needs to be more resources in place to support women entrepreneurs to ensure that they have all the resources within their grasp to grow their business, to fund their business, and be able to scale it and take it to the next level. And so that includes, you know, coming up with creative ways for them to get access to funding. And then I would say looking at ways to remove any kinds of barriers that may be creating issues for them to do business, not only just locally, but as they look into even regionally and then further look to expand internationally, remove barriers that would impede them for growing and being successful in their business. And so, yeah. Did you want to say something?
No. I know we have to wrap up at 2:30, and I wanted to just see if any of the other panelists.
Those are the main things that I wanted to talk about.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone else? I know we're talking about entrepreneurship and resources from the public sector and private sector to help them scale, engage in PPP, and attract foreign investment.
Well, you know, this is like a slight little twist on what Keisha was talking about. You know, when I look at how the economy is changing, you know, I do a lot of work around the gig economy, freelance economy, whatever you want to call it. So when you look at how the world is changing and you look at what futurists are saying about what will look like in the next couple years after COVID. And I do believe that there's, you know, some really good basis for this, but you know, there's discussion that after COVID, that, you know, in Africa, US, we've lost a number of our small businesses. So the ones that can rise from the dust, they probably are going to be very cautious about hiring staff. So they're going to be looking to the freelance economy. There were projections like in Africa, I think it's 10% of the freelance economy is in Africa. There's some projections that is probably going to quadruple like within the next 5 to 7 years, because it's a way for people in Africa to access income in English-speaking countries. The average freelancer makes $19 an hour. So think about it, and that's of course an educated, skilled person, but think about what that will do for just the standard of living. Think about what that will do for gender equality. Think about what that will do for the graduates who are coming back home and saying, hey, I can't find a job that correlates with my education. So I believe that there needs to be more public-private partnerships that are really bolstering up this whole gig freelance economy, because this is where we're going. We have about a third of companies in the US right now use gig workers, but after COVID, now everybody knows you can work remote, it can work. Now companies know, hey, I don't have to have all of this real estate. Work from home, use your own computer. I'll give you some, you know, some protections. They can cut their costs by anywhere from 30 to 40%. Corporations are going to do it because they've got to, you know, make their shareholders. So I think we're going to miss a great opportunity for the continent if we don't put infrastructure in to support this growing part of the economy that's predicted to just skyrocket in the next few years after COVID.
I want to add here a few things. It's a very interesting point that is related to freelance, part-timers, or the outsourced employees emerging. But before that, I want to extend that point that if you are going to rely 100% on foreign investments, so it's again has some economic issues. Mm-hmm. Like if you see, there is a country every country has a current account and they have a balance of payment, which according to the national regulations, they should have less imports in the country and more exports out of the country. So if you're talking, if economy want to rely 100% on foreign investments, that makes sense that money will come. But when they will realize their profit after the year, a lot of dollar is going to out from the country, which is going to create a stress on your currency and your balance of payment and your surplus and deficits of the current accounts. So we cannot ignore the economy and economics related to a country as well. So I like that point that we need to find those Africans who are rich, who have done, I know so many, they are in England, they are in USA, they are in UAE. I meet them on frequent, they are billionaires, but they are really reluctant to invest the money in their own country. There is a reason, that is a political rivalry. Their opponents are not letting them invest, or if they invest, they have a fear that when the government will change, so the new government will transform everything and maybe the person can go in a jail. So these are the fears that stops them. So what my advice to every country is that first they should create a sort of legislation that whoever comes in power, no matter you are from opposition or you are from a government party you belongs to, because a party funding mechanism is that there are rich investors who give money to the politicians to run the show. So if you are from an opponent party, of course, you will not let him or her flourish in your country. So first, the government should agree on this point, which certain countries has already agreed that whatever government change, they will not disturb or revert the investment agreements that they have already done. So that will actually flourish the internal economy, which will create jobs. And second is the best brain people from Africa who are sitting across outside Africa in different countries. The country should bring them back because they are the one who belongs to this country, and they have already acquired American values or British values or other values, and they are very capable to deliver these values to the local community and upgrade their talent in terms of human capital or in terms of expertise and business styles. So these points are really important. But all other points that we talk is also a mix of micro and macro. Like when we say, let's talk about job, but no one will create a job until there is a fear. There is, as we all studied in our basic books, this pestle analysis, like political, economical, social, technological. Uh, so these factors are really important. We cannot ignore. If any government wants to grow but not ready to automate themselves, they don't want to be friendly with the investor. They don't want to create an anti-corruption country in terms of nepotism, in terms of corruption. Things will be dream only. It will not reach to any other levels. Uh, I will conclude my remarks with this. Like if you think about UAE, United Arab Emirates, it's a country which is 100% consists on a desert. So if you see, deserts are everywhere. India has desert, Pakistan has desert, America has deserts, and Africa also has desert. But do you think that anyone will go and dream to live in these deserts? Not at all. So desert or a plain land or a full of greenery, this is not the criteria. The criteria is the leadership, the systems that protects every individual citizen, attract international human resource, then money follow you. Money in the world as a capitalism, as we start in the beginning, the Thelma said that where there is a high risk, there is a high return also. So I think, uh, so because Africa has high risk, so we have high returns as well. Yeah, please continue.
Thelma, I want to give you an opportunity to answer that question as well. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. No, I'm worried about the time for you. I think, what makes, your question was, how can you be attractive to an investor? No one can invest in someone they don't see. I think we have to, a lot of African businesses are thinking myopically. I enjoyed the previous panel, moderated by Rolake, because when we're thinking about export, many times we think about, the US, the UK and everything, but, the market in Africa, we're 1.2 billion people, partnerships across the continent, if you're visible, will be, it's easier to just, you don't need a visa to go to any West African country if you're Nigerian. And you can just go in there and explore how to do business and use that as a means of building larger partnerships. I think we all on the continent also, we have to make sure that if you want to be attractive to an investor, investors like people who are thought to be leaders of whatever industry that they're in. If you're not a leader in terms of profit, you can be a thought leader. And if you are known as someone who has given the issues you're working on a lot of thought, you're driving innovation, you try to be cutting edge, the way you even just structure your website is done with efficiency, these things count. I used to be a donor for years. I used to give out grants for years. And so many times the first thing you would do as a donor is just look at the website of the person you're thinking of giving a grant. And that could be the difference between a yes and a no. And these are things that just very, very simple things that don't cost money that people can do. And then use that as the starting point to then do the much bigger things that cost money. The last thing I will say in terms of making yourself attractive, whatever you do before you go into any partnership, I'm not asking you to go to law school, but understand contracts. Make sure you understand contracts. I can't tell you how many people have sold their homes because they didn't read the fine print. Okay, and that is happening a lot to Africans. There are a number of examples going on right now where, the rug was pulled out from under them. So it's very important that as you package yourself, these are not skills you necessarily have to have in yourself, but make sure you have it as part of your team, and make sure you make sure you have a trusted person that is looking at the terms that you're negotiating with. Because if you meet any partner, local or international, and they're very clear that you understand the terms of a contract, it elevates your position. It puts you in a very strong position on how to negotiate. I'll stop there.
I think that last point is great, and as being a lawyer, I absolutely appreciate it. And I think that that's one way that the private sector and public sector can support entrepreneurship is education and making sure they understand the business landscape as well. I think we have 1 minute left. If anyone wants to, and probably enough time for everyone to have a few seconds to give us a last word. Or not.
I think 1 minute is too less to wrap up.
Exactly.
But we can say that I think we can close in a way that this is a very important and interesting discussion, and such kind of discussion with different people across the globe should keep discussing and get value and exchange the information between them. So I want to thank you and to having me, and I'm looking forward to have more discussions in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll say if you're looking to invest in Africa, invest in African women. Not only they're not only extremely reliable. African women are pushing the envelope in a number of industries, and make sure that you also look at the key sectors I would leave people with. That in any African country, if you're looking to invest, you're definitely going to find ways of making profit in any of these sectors. Renewable energy. I think Angela's point on tech and the gig economy, absolutely vital. And of course, agriculture. So thank you, Remy. It is an honor to be here. I am so proud of you. And thank you, Shavon, for excellent moderation.
Thank you. It doesn't look like we have any questions, so I will let the other panelists also take a little bit of time just to wrap up and give us a last word very quickly.
Well, I will say,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for the invitation. It was a very interesting discussion, and I concur that you know, you know, we always say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes different sectors of society to make a society work. So strongly encourage public-private partnerships.
Excellent.
And I would like to also thank Remy for the opportunity to participate in this panel. And I would concur with what everybody else has said. Thelma, your point on women entrepreneurs are definitely worth investing in. And I would also say that this whole COVID-19 pandemic has really demonstrated the importance of digital transformation and how we have to relook at how we have been doing business moving forward. And I think investing in that and how it can impact communities across Africa, I think is going to be very important. And so I think there is a lot of potential on the continent. I think that there needs to be more definite connections between African Americans and the African continent. And any way we can progressively move forward with breaking down any barriers to those connections, I think is going to be critically important moving forward.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much. Dr. Remy, thank you so much for having me on the panel as well.
Thank you all very much. I wanted to let you all know that this conversation will be continuous through the Legacy Global Network. I know a lot of conversations are starting now, but you will hear from us. Thank you all. I know some of you is way past your bedtime. We appreciate you. I just wanted to chime in and let you know that we're going to need you to continue this conversation with the Legacy Global Network. So stay tuned. Thank you.